I'm James Holder, welcome to Full Court Football 24. With me I've got former Chelsea, Millwall, Gillingham and Leyton Orient star, none other than John Sitton, and also star of Leyton Orient's very own documentary, Yours for a Fiver. How are you, sir?
Yeah, you got it right.
I got it right.
Good, yeah.
What,
And in the right order.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for making a little bit of time for us today, John.
No problem.
I'd like to look back on your footballing career as well as your managerial career.
Yeah.
A lot of people know you from your work, obviously, as manager of Leyton Orient. Very first TV documentary to go out on football management. When you look back on that series now, what stands with you and what thoughts do you have about it?
Well, it's funny because I'd done it, and I can't even think of the reasons why. I had some sort of spiteful vitriol from a couple of Orient supporters. One saying, "Imagine thinking you're still relevant," and another one saying, "I've got no problem you coming to pick me up in your cab. I've got a £5 for you. You can come and pick me up after an Orient game." Blah, blah, all the sort of stuff you get, like keyboard warriors saying. And yet here we are 25 years later doing another interview, which I've done quite a few now. So it's quite funny. So in that respect, it's just been brought up ironically of late in I'm led to believe in the Guardian and the Sun, tying it in with the latest documentary, which the subject matter this time is Spurs and the some of the language used by Jose.
Now your rant at half time against Brentford for Leyton Orient has gone down in history as one of the most harshest team talks ever. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, I'm sorry for myself that I did it. And then I'm not sort of telling you what questions to ask, but that's about as far as it goes. I'm only sorry from my own point of view, although I can't really even begin to work out what I was thinking back then with regards to trying to weed out basically an overrated, overpaid, underachieving footballer who for my money just coasted through, borderline cheated his way through, like I think it was probably 8-9 year career at Leyton Orient, and people forget that I was his teammate, so I saw at close hand how he conducted himself, and yet I tried to protect him as a friend. That's just the one part of it, and then the other part of it was basically the rant after proper preparation, building up to the Boxing Day game against Brentford. We come off, I think it was 3-0 down after 20 minutes. So obviously my reaction was volcanic, but what wasn't seen was what went on behind the scenes with regards to me juggling 6 jobs to basically save the club going into administration, ultimately liquidation.
Now, your first season when you got joint manager of Leyton Orient, last 4 games of the season, you managed to steer the club away from relegation, which is a massive, massive thing. I want to get into this and this side of it, but before we do, I think it's only fair that we talk a little bit about your past and how you got to this situation. I know you was at Arsenal as a youth team player.
Yeah.
How did you get spotted for Arsenal? How pick me up from there?
Well, it was a mixture of being spotted by a guy who said he was affiliated called Ted Squires. And I can't reveal too much because even though he's passed away, it's part of the subject matter for my second book, and it all ties in, unfortunately, with the child sex abuse allegations at Chelsea. So it was a case ultimately jumping out of the fat into the fire, but coupled with a letter that was sent by me parents, I was who lied about my age. My dad lied about my age. I was training at under 14 level as a 12-year-old for a year. Then I got, which I didn't know until much further down the line when I was lecturing as an FA coach educator. I got a condition called Osgood Schlatter, which is basically, in synopsis form, it's like debilitating pain, born of growth spurts. And I was at that age where I went from just probably 4 foot odd to 5 foot odd to 6 foot and half an inch. And there's anyone to tell you the extra half an inch makes a difference. So I was there, and then through a debilitating injury, I left, and then there was one of 9 clubs that wanted me back when I started the game representative on as at under 13 level. So and then I moved on to Chelsea, as you say. But it was a good 10 months at Arsenal. Dave Smith was the coach with a guy called Ian Crawford. Ian Crawford, I think he went on. I think he ended up coaching in Norway or somewhere in Scandinavia. I'm pretty sure it was Norway. But the best out of the two was definitely Dave Smith. He went on to manage Southend, Plymouth Argyle. Fantastic grounding, if you like. And you know, as you'd expect, somewhere like Arsenal, a bit of quality assurance. You know, I was brought up as an Arsenal supporter by my dad, so you know, you go in basically as a kid, and I mean like literally just turned 12. You know, you're in awe of the place. You know what I mean? But as you'd expect, somewhere like Arsenal, the quality assurance. Yeah.
Talk to me about switching your football to Chelsea and everything that went around that at the time.
Well, I started to gain a few representative honours. Obviously, you start with your school, you're playing for your youth club, and I was training or playing every day of the week, which is it's funny because it was a bit more organic then, and I probably, if it was now, I would be asked to rest and recuperate, and then they'd allow, like, I've got friends who have got kids in academies, etc. You know, they get, if they get signs of a growth spot, they get signs of fatigue, they're rested, etc., etc. We just sort of basically played on and on and on and on and on. And it was more organic then, and then I started to get district honours, and then we went county level, and then that changed from Middlesex to inner London, and then it was like I say, Chelsea were like one of 9 clubs that wanted my signature. I went there, started to do a little bits and pieces around clubs. In terms of like what they call the evening coaching sessions, you know, what there'd be academies now, to get a flavour for it, sample the the coaching. And when I went to Chelsea, it was really magnificent, second to none. You could feel it. You understand, which I've always said. It sounds a bit strange. I don't know if it's coming across the right way, but I've always said that when you play, you feel football. You know what I mean? When I'm coaching, you know what I mean? Or when I was coaching, you feel football. You don't just play it, you feel it. And when you do something good, bad, indifferent, you know what I mean? It's something that goes through you, it runs through you. You feel it mentally, and it manifests itself physically. Same flip side of the coin is when it's good, like it was at Chelsea, really good, you want to be part of it. So I picked Chelsea and signed Schoolboy. What
was it like in and around Chelsea, and who would have been your big inspirations at the club at that time?
Well, they just come off the back of a good run, quite high achieving in terms of status, and I suppose going for stuff, but then underachieving. If you listen to may rest in peace people like Dave Sexton, the way they used to talk about the underachievers, and the underachievement of the club, because you had the King's Road set, you know what I mean? And they were like sort of footballing gods to me, people like Peter Osgood and Alan Hudson, do you know what I mean? It was like down the King's Road and enjoying life, and it wasn't so much, you know, how it is now, where you concentrated on the athleticism part, and then, you know, the rest and recuperation and stretching programs and diet and nutrition. You know, they used to play and train and get out and have a social, which probably helped with the bonding. But you know, they come off the back, they won the FA Cup. It's funny because for the first evening now, we'd done a bit of training, and they showed us the first FA Cup final at Wembley against Leeds, then the cup final, the next session, the cup final replay, which was absolutely brutal, you know, and gone down in infamously as probably one of the most brutal cup finals ever. At Old Trafford, which they won. Then the following year they won the European Cup Winners' Cup, beating Real Madrid. I think it was after a replay in Athens. Then the following year, I think they got the League Cup final, got narrowly beaten by Stoke. And then there was always hovering in and around maybe the top 4, top 5, top 6 of what was the old First Division. And you just thought, well, this is the place to be. And you look at the personalities, people, household names, you know, Ronnie Harris, Peter Osgood, you had Peter Bonetti in goal, the manager Dave Sexton. Then you had the coaching staff, which I would have come into contact with more than the upper echelons of the club. People like Ken Chiletto, Dario Gradi. Ken Chiletto was a one-club man. May he rest in peace. I think he passed away last year. And when you're getting good information and the atmosphere's good and it's a good set of lads, you just think, yeah, this is the place to be. So, like I signed Schoolboy, and then you're looking upwards. Probably 2 age groups above me would have been the likes of Ray Wilkins, his brother Graham Wilkins, and your Tommy Langleys and your Clive Walkers and people like that. Johnny Bumpstead, I think he went on to have over 400 games. You know, they're the ones. Your Steve Wicks, another one. you're looking to basically move in and get alongside them.
There's been a lot of accusations and issues regarding Chelsea at the time with the youth team. Did you suffer any physical or mental abuse while you was at Chelsea?
Well, looking back, I suppose the short answer's yeah, but I would have been yes, but I drew a line in the sand. And yet again, I sorry to think if it's spoils the interview maybe, but I can't reveal too much because I'm going to talk about it in book 2. It's actually made me look a mug, because I've done a really well received volume 1, A Little Knowledge is a Dangerous Thing, which was my autobiography, probably come out too late, post the Channel 4 documentary. But the guy that the accusations centred around, Eddie Heath, he was like, I never really had anyone, which, you look at it, you think you become an adult. I'm one of them, I'm a deep thinker and I break stuff down, and you look at how stuff manifests and da-da-da-da. He would have been very good at spotting that, I didn't really have anyone to look up to in terms of me dad because he was away all the time. So, you're looking for a mentor in life, if you like. You're looking for someone who can sort of guide you, show you the way. And I actually put in my book that he was a good friend and a good mentor. And then you obviously, in the papers, you had the thing where it came out, even after signing a confidentiality agreement, it came out about Gary Johnson, who was... which again I'm going to put in the book. He was my duties partner for 2 years. We had a massive intake of apprentices, and we had a full group, I think, of 16. So like you had 4 4s and you split up into 2 2s, and then you rotated, whereby you did the boots, collected the boots, cleaned the boots, polished the boots, so banged the mud off and got the wire brush on them, then cleaned them and polished them. Did things like the kit, laid the kit out, collected the dirty kit in, put it in the skip. After getting it out, the skip to lay it out before training, doing all the bathrooms, the shower rooms, the toilets, etc., the dressing rooms. He never uttered a word. And yet it was round about that time, just before that time, I think he would have been a schoolboy, where he actually said in the paper, quite graphically, what went on. And I was absolutely... Everyone thought or knew or had an inkling that Eddie might have been... the modern day parlance would have been like he was gay, but not really getting involved with kids. You know what I mean? So when I see it in the paper, it was a shock to me. Although when you look back at some of his conduct in and around the club, maybe not so much of a shock. But like I said, I was one of them even at an early age. A couple of my kids took after me in the respect that the teachers gave feedback and said they're, which is what you've got to look for as a coach, and you come to experience as a coach. Certain kids, their personalities are already formed at a very young age. My personality was already very well formed, I would think, where I was getting in a few tear-ups at school, wasn't suffering idiots, and then basically after a couple of times where he might have made an attempt to put his hands on me as I got out the shower. He used to watch us have a shower. You come out with your towel round, yeah, or or not, as the case may be. I've swiveled round a couple of times and said, like, looked him in the eye and said, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" And I think he backed off. And also I think he got a bad vibe, because there was times when he used to take all the lads out for a meal, because we never got any backhanders, we never got any signing on fees, we never got any bungs. This was all going on at other clubs. Chelsea were literally skint, and I mean skint. So every now and again there would be like a group bonding session where we might go and have a steak together, and we was only kids, and he'd drop you at your respective houses. We were all based in and around the North and East London area. The South London boys could sort of take care of themselves, because that was right on the top of the training ground at Mitcham. And I distinctly remember one of my uncles saying, like, "Who's this guy?" And a couple of bad vibes. My dad had a big family. He had 6 brothers, I think, 4 sisters. One of the uncles, and then my mum's brother as well, said, don't be bringing him to this house again. You know what I mean? So and there was also, there was a lot of goings on at other clubs as well, which I'm going to reveal in book 2.
I can't wait to listen to it, to read it, to be honest. It sounds proper riveting stuff.
Yeah, well, I would think, I mean, I'm one of them. I'll say it as it is, and I'll say what went on, and how I reacted to it, and then like I find it astonishing when you actually, and it's also part of the contradiction in terms of like the management I came across with people like Frank Clark and Keith Peacock. It never ceases to amaze me how they want leaders on the field. They want you to be a man on the field. They want you to take responsibility on the field. They want you to stand up for yourself on the field. And then when you come off the field, they don't want you to have a personality. So it's all part of that contradiction with regards to coaching and management, if you understand what I mean, which I'll be addressing. And there was quite a few times when as one of Frank Clark's, one of the best signings of his career, who actually contributed to saving his job at Leyton Orient, when they were screaming for him to be sacked at every home game. There was quite a few times when I've had a tantrum in the dressing room at half time. He's like, "Shut up, you big baby." He used to call me a big baby. Do you know what I mean? What? Because I fucking stood up for myself. You're a baby. So you can't have it both ways. So you're dealing with intellectual pygmies. Two of life's very lucky boys who exploited my love for the game.
Talk to me about making your professional debut for Chelsea.
I didn't know anything about it. I was just told to report to the game. It was a midweek fixture against Coventry, Stamford Bridge under the floodlights, and then like we had to turn up as a group. Everybody, you had the first team squad, the youth team squad, and then the amalgam of the two. I wasn't quite in the reserves yet, and beg your pardon, no, I'd gone past that. I'd actually turned up. I was now, by this time, I was captain of reserve, so I would have been about 18. And turned up and I was told to report to the first team dressing room. I went up to we had like a youth club set up, so it's like you've got the new crop coming in behind you, but you don't really, you don't feel part of the first team setup, and you don't really want to leave behind the youth team setup. So I used to still be part of like the group that was coming up behind me, like Peter Rhodes Brown and Colin Pates, people like this. So I reported to the youth club we had set up on the South Bank that Eddie Heath put together, and we had like our bar and our table tennis tables and snooker table and whatever. And the lads used to congregate there, and Eddie said, "Look, if I was you, you better report to the first team dressing room." So I went, "Oh, right." I actually took my fiance with me, and I said, "All right, you wait here, and I'll be back in a minute." And when I went in there, they named the side, and I was sub. I sat there, I was shocked. So I'm assuming they thought I was rightly or wrongly, I don't know. They thought that I might have been a bit nervous. You know what I mean? So they kept it from me until the last minute. So I suppose they thought they was managing me. Yeah. So I was named as sub. We were 3-1 down at half time. Ronnie Harris, which a lot of people I don't know whether to do it. I could do a whole chapter on what went on at Chelsea and what was going on behind the scenes and who got away with what and who did what. Because it's like very much a bittersweet memory for me. The goings on at Chelsea, very much a bittersweet. I mean, it's 5 fantastic years, and then like I say, people couldn't handle my personality, or lack of it, or whatever. I don't know if it's because I was socially awkward at the time or what. I don't know. But Ronnie Harris got a chasing like you wouldn't believe. They played him centre back. And you had goings on behind the scenes with players that had already left the club, like Steve Wicks. So he was a centre back. So the pathway was quite sort of open for me, if you like. I had people alongside me that let the Wales Youth International go. Yori Jenkins, who played alongside me in the youth team. Then the other one was they couldn't quite make their mind up about him. Gary Chivers changed his name from Gary Charalambos. I think he started life as a fullback, and then ultimately he became a centre back who played quite a few games. But sticking to specifics, what was in front of me, Mickey Droy was basically perennially injured. So I think he was more worried about his car front in Clapham than he was trying to keep Chelsea in the first division. And so they stuck Ronnie Harris in at centre back. David A had by this time had a detached retina. He'd retired, so that maybe it was a case of look around and said, well, who's doing the best out of who's playing in the reserves? And that was me. Anyway, it stayed 3-1. I come on at half time. I think it stayed 3-1, and then I had a run of games. Then I had a nice run of games.
What was Ron Chopper Harris like to play with, and what was he like in the changing room?
as sharp as a carpet tack on and off the field, I'd say, in the respect that if you were to hold up someone as a shining light with regards to what you should be like as a professional footballer in terms of looking after number one, he would be it. He would be the poster boy. Uncompromising on the field, capable. Ken Chiletto said in the first year of my apprenticeship to me and my dad, he reminds me a lot of Ron. He's a very accomplished defender. Does everything well. Does everything accomplished without putting, whipped cream and cherry on top. I don't know, like Bobby Moore or something. You know what I mean? I was basically very accomplished according to the coaching staff, and according to Ken, I reminded me a lot of Ron. Reminded him a lot of Ron, I should say. Yeah, I mean, he went on record number of appearances, and at the time, I don't know if it still stands. I think it might still stand. I think John Terry fell just short. I'm not sure. Yeah, he was a good captain, a leader. Really, like along with Ray Wilkins and David A, a man amongst men. He actually tried to help me quite a bit. Looking back, I was, I don't know, beyond help. I was beyond help.
In what way?
Well, if I look back at the say between 14 and 17, I was all right. I was like a sponge. I was like a vacuum cleaner. I was soaking up every bit of information I could get. I was a dedicated trainer. I was fanatical in terms of like preparation, in terms of watching what I eat, how I conducted myself, to the extent where, I look back at it, I was like probably malnourished. You know what I mean? I'd leave the house at 8 o'clock in the morning to travel from North London, where I was in Edmonton, all the way across to the training ground at Mitcham. And I used to get up about 20 to 8, have a quick wash, brush my teeth, and a bowl of cereal, and that was it. And that was expected to keep me going all the way through until late afternoon after you'd finished your duties. There was no such thing as training ground lunches and looking after the thing. That used to happen at Arsenal. They was renowned for looking after their kids and feeding them well, but not at Chelsea. So it makes you wonder how you kept going. And you're at that sort of developmental stage where physically you want to push on and cut. You want to start pumping, filling out, looking pumped up, and being able to handle yourself physically. So then, coupled with the fact that when I started making a bit of headway, got offered a 4-year deal at 17 and a half, captain reserves at 18, started to think I was Jack the Biscuit. And you look back now, and then I went from potential, which is, I think I read it somewhere, potential has no boundaries. So I went from that to where I am now, 61 in October, which is where Ronnie was coming from, and David A sat down with me in the bath, in the communal bath at White Hart Lane. Ray Wilkins, where they was coming from, they was trying to help the 17 and a half, 18-year-old John Sitton, and I look back and I just think there was no talking to him. It's like, almost as if I'd already thought that I'd arrived and made the most of my chance. When in actual fact the chance was actually slipping away.
Was there a big drinking culture at Chelsea at the time, with the players boozing and going out?
Yeah, massive, yeah. And that was the age group above, more than my age group. I used to try and be one of the chaps, mob. I mean, I was his mate, because I used to pick him up in the morning. Jimmy Clary lived in Islington, and I used to pick him up on the way to training and take him into training, because I was one of the few with a car. The other one was Mickey Nutton, and I think he was the second one to get a car, or might have been the third after Gary Chivers. Or the fourth. There was me, Gary Johnson, Gary Chivers, and Mickey Nutton bought a Mini. I had an Opel Commodore Coupe. Chivers had, I think he had an Escort, and Johnson had an Escort. So we were the only four that had cars. Mickey and Jimmy could drink. Me, I was at me box. 3 hours of lager, I was at me box. So I couldn't drink. So, I made the mistake of wanting to be in with the in crowd, one of the chaps. If it was like, if it was now, or if it was like I was in the second half of my career, if I could have replicated in the first half of my career, maybe I'd have been at Chelsea for 15, 16 years. Because the 21, 22, 23, 28-year-old John Sitton was nothing like the 18, 19-year-old John Sitton. Do you understand? And if I could have been as single-minded as I was in the second half of my career, in the first half of my career, maybe, you know, my name would have been more well known, and I wouldn't have slid down the pole, down the playing pyramid. Above us, it was phenomenal. They used to train, go to a restaurant after training because there was no lunches at the training ground, so they'd go like be a restaurant and drink, or they'd go to one of the local race courses, Kempton, Sandown, Windsor, and drink, or they'd go to the grounds at night at Wimbledon and drink, or they'd just after training drink. You know what I mean? So it was one of the four, but it always involved drink. The main protagonists were Tommy Langley, Lee Frost, and Clive Walker. You know, they'd drink enough to sink a battleship. I've seen Walks do 15 pints and then get up the next day when Gordon Hurst turned up and run everybody into the ground. He was a physical freak, like absolute, you know, phenomenal athlete. You can't help thinking, because it turned out that I realised, I worked out that I'd worked out myself that I needed everything going for me in terms of attitude and application. And when I got it together, it probably stopped me from slipping out the game. So I went from being talented and expressive as a kid to accomplished as a youth to nearly going out the game.
Was it a tough decision for you to leave Chelsea and to refocus and remotivate yourself to move to Millwall?
Well, the decision was made for me by Jeff Hurst and Bobby Gould, and behind the scenes Brian Eastick. Brian Eastick was the best coach in the club after Dario and Ken left, and Eddie Mack, who was a pioneer and as innovative as anyone in the game. And the year we went up under Eddie McCready, who, by the way, he loved me, and I still might not have been a player because I might have been 2 inches too short. Like Steve Wicks was like an honey monster, you know what I mean? Like 6'3", left foot, so a value-added premium, but not particularly good on the ball and adequate in the air. Do you know what I mean? Not particularly mobile. And I fell between the two stools. You know what I mean? You had David O, who was a magnificent athlete, played centre-back as well, and midfield for Scotland in 1974 World Cup, out-Braziled the Brazilians. So I fell somewhere between the two stools. I wasn't an honey monster height, and I wasn't rapid, quick like David A, or great athlete like David A. But when you look at it, you think like Eddie Mack achieved nothing short of a minor miracle, because after he left, they all thought there was like rock stars, film stars, etc., other than Ray Wilkins. And, you know, it was like a club waiting to implode, which eventually it did after Eddie Mack left. But I'd have headed the back of a bus for him, tackled a dumper truck, you know what I mean? He was like unbelievable, charismatic, man motivator, great coach, very innovative. He played the year we went up, I think 4-4-1-1. Yeah, he played Ray Wilkins just off of Steve Finiston up front. And when you start to sell the family silver, you know, you got a bit of a problem. Then you fast forward to where we were, and Eddie Mack left, as I say. Ken, he'd actually been manager for a little while. He left. Dario Gradi left under Eddie Mack. So the cupboard was bare with regards to how it used to be, which is like quality assured, top drawer coaching and information, organisation, structure. And the only one in the club who was capable of it was Brian Eastick, and I was at loggerheads with him. So again, you know, the player I was at Orient, when I came across Brian again, which he said, he confessed to me, he said, well, I've asked Frank, has he had any aggravation out of you? Or any aggravation with you? I said, like, Brian, listen, at the end of the day, what am I now, 27, 28? I said, I'm not 18 anymore. You know what I mean? If I'd have recognised it, what a magnificent coach Brian Eastick was, then I might not have got in trouble, and I might still have been at Chelsea. But then I was permanently at loggerheads with him. I was always answering him back. I was always having a pop. He tried to take a liberty once in training, actually, and I topped him. So that obviously that didn't go down too well either.
Really? Well, what happened?
Oh, he was having a keep ball session, and I think I'm not sure whether he tried to nick it round me or nutmeg me or something. Well, that weren't going to happen anyway. You know what I mean? He was a fouled goalkeeper and a teacher from Loughborough. Just I ain't fucking having that. So I ironed him out, and then goings on behind the scenes, coupled with the fact I got sent off against Arsenal in the football combination. And he said, "Oh, I fucking told you." He had me in the office, sat down behind Jeff Hurst's desk. And you've let your teammates down again. Yet again, we're reduced to 10 men. What's wrong with you? You're playing magnificently. We've hung on and kept a clean sheet. But why do you do it? And all that. Well, what happened was, I said, "Well, you don't see what's gone on." I said, "At the end of the day, I've reacted wrong." I said, "I wouldn't have given a fuck if it was Muhammad Ali. I'd have chinned him. Honestly and truly, if I flip, I do not give a fuck who it is." He said, "Well, what happened?" I said, "Well, one of the Arsenal players spat at me." So obviously I didn't even hear. It was just before half time. We were winning 1-0 and I didn't even hear the half time talk. I was just like, and then instead of someone saying, "Spot, calm down, get your composure," I just launched myself at the first player I could, the first Arsenal player I could. And I think he was out for about 8 weeks. It was Paul Davis. I've regretted it to this day. Because it weren't Paul that spat at me, but anyone in an Arsenal shirt would have done. I was brought up. So then you've got the hypocrisy of football. You understand the double standards. They forget that I watched every home game on the North Bank. You understand what I mean? You look at some of the tackles Peter Storey put in. If it was done on the street, it would have been classed as grievous bodily harm. You know what I mean? So this is the duplicity and hypocrisy of football. So then we had the thing in the dressing room afterwards, Brian's thing, and then he's reported me to Jeff Hurst and Bobby Gordon. They've pulled me in the office, and then it's on me. So they're like Cyclops now. They're watching me every move. And then I remember yet another out into Richmond Park. They came in and they made a sweeping statement covering a sweeping broad generalisation of the fact that not everybody in the club is fit enough. So what we're going to do, we're going to work on your fitness. And they basically then ran the bollocks off us for 9 months. There was no, what I was used to. There was no drill in the back four or drill in the back five or defending in the box or retreating and marking as centre-backs or patterns of play going through the 3/3 or the ball rolling out from the goalkeeper and what can we do to play through the 3/3 and set pieces and restarts, whatever you want to call them, throw-ins, crossing and finishing drills, keep balls, etc., etc. There was none of that. They basically ran the bollocks off us for 9 months. One went on to become an FA Cup winning manager and managing the national side. But then you replay things in your mind. You think to yourself, well, if you had a manager, he actually became assistant to Ron Greenwood. If you had a manager who couldn't manage or man manage or coach, right, you're then looking to the number two, who was the assistant manager / coach who couldn't coach but ended up becoming a good manager. What chance you got? You understand what I mean? But what happened was we had a ritual where every Friday it was short and sharp. This was after during the week maybe going for a couple of 7-mile runs in Richmond Park, avoiding the wild stag and deer, treading in dog shit, etc., interspersed with shuttles and doggies, or you'd be at the main ground or the training ground, and if there was a practice match, Jeff Hurst would laying on the grass chewing a bit of grass and he'd go get Brian over, as in Brian Eastick, to solve a problem which I was in the first team. We was struggling to cope with third man runs from the reserve team midfield players into our boxes. We tried to squeeze up, easily remedied now. I know it like that. I was playing alongside Mickey Droy. This is a fucking joke. How can this be happening? You and you go with your runners. So there was like rowing. I just stayed out of it. And then Jeff says, get Brian over, who coached it, and very well, might I add. But like I said, I was at loggerheads with him. But if you weren't doing that, you'd basically do you wouldn't do a free stage warm up like I was taught when I was doing modules for the FA, or like I did when I was a coach. You'd do a jog around the pitch, you'd do a few stretches, then you'd be straight into it. 3 groups, 1 lot of 800 metres, 2 400 metres, 4 200 metres, 4 box to box, 4 lots of shuttles or doggies, whatever you want to call them, because different people give them different names, and then a 9-a-side and in, no warm down, nothing, and that was it. That's basically what we did for 9 months. So then on a Friday it was short and sharp, or what they perceived to be short and sharp. You'd report to Stamford Bridge, and then the ritual was for everybody go to the main gate, turn left, and there was a pub on the left, I think it's now called the Chelsea. I'm not sure. It used to be called the Black Ball. And everyone used to go there. And like I said, there was never any food laid on at the training ground or at the main ground. Chelsea never had a pot to piss in. And that was reflected in the coach trips and the fact that there was nothing ever on the coach. No water, no Gatorade, no Lucozade, no nothing to eat. You know what I mean? And then, anyway, you go to the Black Bush, you'd order something like cottage pie, chips and beans, which wouldn't be on the menu now for athletes. Blackcurrant and lemonade, and have a game of darts or a game of pool. One Friday, Jeff Hurst pokes his head round the door. Says, "What are you lot doing here? You should be at home resting." So all the teams are picked. We're just having a thing before we go home. And I'll be true with you, during the week, some of us even used to, or even on a Friday, used to go to the pictures. Used to go to the cinema. I mean, I said to Bobby, what are we going to do? Go home and watch fucking Little House on the Prairie? Do you know what I mean? So he said, manager's office, 3 o'clock. Bump, 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 all of you. It was me, Mickey Nutton, Jimmy Clare, I think Mike Fillery, I think Gary Chivers, Clive Walker, Lee Frost. So the usual protagonists, one age group trying to marry to the age group above. And then we turn up and you go in one by one. Frost and Walker came out giggling. I was up before, I don't know, Chivers and Fillery went in. They both came out beetroot red. They were obviously shit a brick. And then my turn to go in before Jimmy and Mickey, and who I thought were my pals. But then when I left, I was the only one that made the effort to stay in touch. So that was another bad call. But I've gone in, and they've ripped into me, both of them. You assume good cop, bad cop, but they absolutely ripped into me. And we got a letter off of Terry Neal from Arsenal that you had a problem with him in the youth team, a kid called Paul Brandon. You ended his career. I said, well, what he didn't put in the letter was that Paul Brandon was going around kicking everybody up in the air. And I tackled him, and that's what happened, and it was an accident. And then this recent one, I said, I don't give a fuck you with your hat-trick in the World Cup, or you with your fucking League Cup final for Arsenal. If a player spits at me, I said, he's going to get fucking hurt. I said, I don't care if it, I think at the time, so it was the late 70s, so Ali was still, I said, I don't care if it's fucking Muhammad Ali. I said, I'll chin him. If I can't chin him, I'll bite him. And you're a troublemaker, you're part of the drinking culture at this club, etc, etc. You've got too much to say to yourself. I said, well, I'm not. And they fucking sat, their mouth just dropped up. I said, I'm not. I said, 3 halves of lager. I said, I'm paralytic. I'm not. I said, I'm not the problem. I'm not the one you got to worry about drinking here. I'm not the one leading people off the straight and narrow here. I said, I've got to come all the way from North London. I said, what makes you think I'm going to do that? Drive all the way to and from North London? I said, and drink. I said, you're Lulu. I said, you ain't done your own work. So they both went a bit red. You know what I mean? So Jeff first says to me, in that case, if you're not part of the drinking culture at this football club, which we need to get rid of, you tell me who is. I said, nah. I said, I've got a better idea. Whoever's told you that I am, let them tell you who really is. Yeah. Because I knew who'd grasped me up. I knew who was putting the spoke in for me. And I ended up further down the line having a good relationship with him at Leyton Orient. That was Brian Eastick, right? So, but at the time I didn't put 2 and 2 together. It's something you go away and think about. And you might have me over. You know what I mean? I ain't saying I'm that sharp that, everyone's incapable, you can't have me over. You might have me over, but in the end I will go away and think about it and break it down, and I will work it out that it's you that's had me over. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So at the time, I didn't realise that he was putting the spoke in behind the scenes, and he wanted rid of me because we was at loggerheads. That was Brian Eastick. I just said to Hurst and Gould, whoever's told you that I'm an integral part of the drinking culture, what you need to go back to them and say you got your information wrong and let them fucking tell you. I said. So he said, no, he said, if you don't tell me, you expect to suffer the consequences, right? So I said to Hurst, whoa, I said, I'm born in Hackney in the East End. You played for West Ham in the East End. I said, and you expect me to be a fucking grass? So I said, you got fucking no chance. I said, you can both go and fuck yourself. So Hurst said to me, in that case, start him. He said, oh, right, is that how you want to play it? So, and I was expecting a fine and a slap on the wrist and blah, blah, blah. Because Ron Stewart, who'd been caretaker manager twice, he liked me as well. He was a scout for Wimbledon. He put in a very favourable report. The only downside was, with Terry Burton and Joe Kinnear, he said to him like that, he maybe lacks a yard of pace, which I can come to. Anyway, Jeff said to me in that case, he said, you can, he said, like, if you don't tell me who is, he said, starting Monday, you report to the main ground and you train on your own until I can get you out of the football club. And that's what happened. And I think by the following Thursday, I'd signed for Millwall.
What was your last words with Jeff and Bobby before you left?
That was it. They never spoke to me again. Jeff Hurst never spoke to me again. Bobby Gould never spoke to me again. I remember during the training, I'd started to change my lifestyle, or my perceived lifestyle.
But when you was training on your own?
No, when I was training with them, Bobby said to me a few times, Brian Eastick came in and patted me on the back and he said, "Sit, you were mean, moody and magnificent." This was in a keep ball, a small-sided game and then a practice match. I said, "All right, cheers, Brian." So I don't know whether it was my upbringing, social awkwardness, adolescent angst. I was 18, whatever, 19. No, I was 19 by this time, 19, 20. Because by the time I left, I was 20. So I just like, cheers, Brian, thank you. And he's just like, winked at me, keep it up. I don't know what was, it was all sorts of shit going off the field with my own life. I'd been in a relationship for 3 years by this time with me, what is, been a lifelong partner, my wife, but she's Greek Cypriot. I was copping all sorts of shit off the Greeks. She was copping all sorts of shit off of the English. Chelsea teammates, Peter Bradley. You can put this in, don't edit this out.
I won't edit nothing.
No, because what I'd done in the first book, I gave these nasty bastards the benefit of the doubt. Peter Bradley said, "Oh, fuck me, look at Sit's bird, he's marrying a refugee." And then we went to an end of dinner dance, end of season dinner and dance, and a presentation ceremony. And people see him as the height of respectability, fantastic amount of jobs in the game, reached the pinnacle of the game, having hung on Roy Hodgson's coattails at Palace and wherever, and with England. Ray Leyton come up. "Who's that drunk as a sack? Who's that fucking piker you were snogging and dancing with?" So I'm juggling, I'm thinking all these, and then this, like Bill Songer said very much later on, Sits, I think, like, and this is probably one of many ingredients why I was destined not to make it big in the game. He said, "You're too sensitive." Well,
do you think that was their way of banter then? Do you think you were supposed to perceive that as a joke?
Yeah, you're supposed to perceive it as a joke, but I thought it was fucking cruel. You know what I mean? It's undermining to me, and it's spiteful towards my missus. So I've been with my missus since the summer of 1976. And we got married in 1982. So we've been married for like fucking 38 years. We've been together 44 years. Yeah. And when I compare her with a lot of wives in football, she's a good old school Mediterranean fucking good looking woman who's a fantastic mother and a fantastic wife. And like I said in my first book, the epitome of calmness and serenity and forgiveness, and probably a great leveler for me. Bit of class, bit of dignity, old school Mediterranean. Takes after her mum. She's got, and as far as I know, a one-man woman. When you look at what's about now, I think, what chance has my son got? You know what I mean? When you look at who they was knocking about with, especially if you're going to start drawing comparisons in terms of, like, a bit of class, a bit of dignity, the way you carry yourself and looks. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking, who the fuck are you to be coating my wife off? You understand? And what I could have done, I could have ripped into him and it would have spoilt the evening. Listen, within 25 seconds, I could have put him in A&E. Trust me. But you swallow it. So, listen, the point I'm making is, you let 100 things go, 200 things go, 500 things go, and then I'm flipped at the wrong time. Or I've flipped and I've overreacted at the wrong time, and I've ended up sending people, like I said, who started on me. I've never started trouble in my life. And then I ended up fucking appearing in court on charges. Do you know what I mean? Once when I was at Chelsea and once when I was at Millwall. Although both incidents happened when I was at Chelsea. just with all the goings on behind the scenes, you know, it was all sort of come on top all at once, and I've overreacted to a couple of things. And then you look at it, it's only with the benefit of hindsight. I mean, I don't think we've got that in common. I think he never got another job in the game, in the pro game anyway. Jeff first, and then I suppose probably destiny, fate, whatever you want to call it, which I'm a great believer in, more so as I get older. Probably came at the right time for everybody. You know.
Talk to me about Millwall. Talk to me about a fresh start, South London, the club, and everything that went along with it.
Again, it's fate, etc. I mean, I don't know. I ain't had a lot of luck, money-wise, through my life, whatever. And then chances I've had, like the one at Chelsea, it's almost as if like I've recognised that they were chances once they've slipped away, once they've passed me. What I will say, Millwall, which I put in my first book, it was something earthy about the gaff that appealed to me, with the people and the lads. The lads being the majority of the squad was made up of the FA Youth Cup winning side. So I was like, sort of, again, I fell between two stools. You had like really a lot of experience there with the signings made by George Petchy, the likes of John Jackson in goal, John Mitchell came from Fulham, I think, 100 grand. Johnny Lyons, may he rest in peace. Me, him and Robbo, we were like social partners, me, him and Paul Roberts. I think he got him from Wrexham for 65 grand, something like that, 60 grand. Mel Blythe. Then you had Barry Kitchener, who was like a Millwall legend. You know, one club man, cracking player, professional centre-back and human being. Yeah, he was at my wedding, Kitch. Nicky Chatterton. Now, when I look at Nicky Chatterton, I can't help thinking, like, going back to Chelsea, right? And probably people could be just as damaging, if you want, derogatory about me. But when I look at Chelsea, when I got in the side, and it's a common theme with a lot of clubs and a lot of players at a lot of clubs, but most certainly through my career, there was no goals in the side. You had like Steve Finiston, right? So this is going to be like a long-winded answer and thing, but it's all gonna come round to what you're asking me, right? We had Steve Finiston, who one of the best finishers I've ever seen in my playing or coaching career, or as a lifelong supporter. He was absolutely nothing short of magnificent, clever, crafty, and crafted in terms of how he wouldn't smash stuff. You know what I mean? Very rarely smashed it. Just used to pass it in the corner. You know what I mean? And so we got promoted at Chelsea before my time. And you're thinking, fantastic, he's your go-to guy. You know what I mean? Ozzy had left. Bill Garner was in and out of the side, who they paid 100 grand to Southend for. And then you look like when you're playing the likes of, bless him, Trev Raylott, who was let go before I got in the side, and then like Tommy Langley and people like Gary Stanley, who was played out of position up front, who basically built a career off the back of like one magnificent free kick in the promotion year. Yeah, Stanners, I mean, he was film star looks, and you got to the stage where his training and playing performance was so contemptible. I used to say to the lads, I don't know whether to pass to him or fuck him. You know what I mean? But there was no goals in him. And there was no goals in Tommy Langley. I think he got something like 1 in 6. He built a career off of an under-hit back pass by Phil Neal in an FA Cup tie at Stamford Bridge, which we won 4-2. He intercepted it and slotted past Ray Clements. So the common denominator being there was no goals in the side, which relieves pressure from an under-siege back four, part of which were players who spent most of their career on the treatment table. Couldn't be fucked with the supporters or the club. Ironically, revered by the supporters. Then I turn up at Millwall, you've got a focal point in Johnny Mitchell, who had a first touch like a revered art surgeon, And then Johnny Lyons, who if he got half a yard, he could explode a shot off of a short backlift, and there was loads of goals in the side. Then you throw in the supporters, which I put in my first book. If you can't play for Millwall supporters, you shouldn't be playing football. And even if I'd had the occasional bad game or I was having a bad game, they would, literally fucking hammer me. You know what I mean? You could hear the abuse, because there's no like 40,000. You could hear like the abuse coming, because like maybe like 3 to 4 to 5,000. You could hear the abuse. So it was like sort of isolated, and you'd hear it, and then like they're looking to see if you crumble. Well, no, it ain't happening. So what I do, you get up and go again. So then you play your way back into the game by winning a few headers, a few tackles, and make a couple of decent passes. Then all of a sudden they're back on side again, and you think to yourself, well, I think it might have been the first home game, because my first game was away to Hull. We lost 1-0, played them off the park, but got done with a sucker punch. And then I come back to people like I was saying earlier, married into the goals. I played with a midfield player at Chelsea who never asked for the ball off of me once in any youth team game, any reserve team game, or any first team game. And yet he's revered and played a lot of games for Chelsea. And all he did was go up and down in that central tranche. So if you drew an imaginary dotted line between the corners of each penalty area, you've got a central tranche. Or like I used to work as a coach, they used to coaches, and you talk to coaching 3/3, or you coaching 3/3, but the 3/3 are broken up laterally. I also did sessions where, probably one of the few coaches that did, where you break the pitch up into 3/3 long ways. So if you drew a dotted line between the corners of each penalty box, there was a player who played in that central tranche, never moved, and he never asked for the ball off me once. So then conversely, you do a 180 where you turn up at Millwall, and one of the most underrated midfield players I ever played with in my life, Nicky Chatterton, was like a breath of fresh air. Always available, always wanted the ball. He could pass the ball, lend it in short, get it back, then go a medium into the front man, then get it back, then go long, crossfield ball, and a tremendous athlete and competitor. And you just think, what a breath of fresh air. So in answer to your question, you got the package of the supporters. You've got people like Barry Kitchener, who you can look up to and who can mentor you. You've got the FA Youth Cup winning side, who are all breaking through at the same time. I'm only 20 years of age, so I'm only like a year and a half above them, right? So I've got people I can relate to, who are my peers, and I've got people I can look up to, and I've got people I can give the ball to, and I've got people who I can play for. Because Chelsea supporters, like I'm going to put in my second book, they don't give a fuck about what's gone before. They don't give a fuck about people spending 5 days a week at the dog track, the race track, on the piss. Don't give a monkeys about their physical preparation. Couldn't score on a fucking stag night in a brothel in Amsterdam or Bangkok. They're not bothered about a 19-year-old centre-back making fucking the odd mistake. They've fucking hammered me. And I mean hammered me. But when you look at the games and break it down, right, I've done all right. And I was only going to get better with experience, you know what I mean? When I left, and you look at it on YouTube now, the people that replaced me, getting absolute fucking chasings and losing 2-0 at home to Orient at Stamford Bridge in the old second division. So, even though I was a division under that, in the third with Millwall, it was like a smugness to it.
Was it smooth sailing for you at Millwall?
It was. Yeah, most of the time it was. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think on my own debut, I scored on my own debut, and I remember we got a wide free kick. It was against Oxford. I think we won it 3-0. And we got a free kick wide on the left, level with the 18-yard box, right? So that bit where the 18-yard box is, between the 18-yard box and the touchline, and well in from the byline. About let's say about 15 yards in from the byline. So wide left. I've jogged up, and then I've looked at Nicky Chatterton, I've given him the eye treatment, and then he's just got his head down, just stepped back a yard, whipped it in, just above head height. I've got across the captain, I think it was Mal Shotton. And you're talking about the Oxford side that went through the divisions, won the Milk Cup, done all right in the first division. Anyway, I got across him, crash, head, neck and shoulders, top corner. The gaff erupted. And then I got sold short by the fifth Beatle, Johnny Seasman, So it ended up, instead of a pass, what we call it, like a decent pass punched in, we call it like a blue light pass, as in the fucking, if you ain't careful, you'll end up in the back of an ambulance with a St John's. So he put the ball, rolled the ball to me with a blue light on it. I've ended up in a 50-50, gone through the first geezer, the ball squirmed out. Second 50-50, I've gone through the second geezer, the ball squirmed out. You're going to think I'm exaggerating, but I promise you. And it all happened in the centre circle. It squirms out, third 50-50, crunch, gone through him, come up with the ball, got up now, because I've got up quick, first tackle, got up quick, second tackle, got up quick, third tackle. I need a breather. And I've rolled it short to Nicky Chatterton. The gaff erupted like we won the European Cup. So I've showed them, like, yeah, the kid's got a bit of ability and he's got a bit of art. So, in summary, yeah, it was pretty plain sailing, because they knew that whatever, every week I turned up, what it was going to get from me. And I think, like I've said before, it was like an interaction. You understand what I mean? Which there wasn't at Chelsea. The massive club Chelsea. But certainly no love lost and no sympathy where a 19-year-old aspiring centre-back's concerned. They were still like living in the past, and they were living from the glory days, and they were living from the promotion under Eddie Mack. And honestly and truly, it spiralled out of control all the way down after those achievements. And the club was never the same. And that, I'll be honest with you, the hierarchy, they didn't know whether they was having a shit shave or haircut. The budget run over, the New East stand run well over budget. I don't know who negotiated that. But you're talking about a club where there was not even a bottle of Lucozade. You know what I mean? You had to get in early to get a jock strap for training, and socks without holes in. So I didn't realise until recently, someone showed me it on Twitter. The year I signed apprentice, 1976, first team players were asked to take wage cuts. Yeah, that's how badly run the club was. And so really and truly, 18, 19-year-old centre-back who's made a lot of headway from the age of 14, was a die-hard, Chelsea player, fanatic, wanted to do well for the club, wouldn't have a bad word said about the club, would go to war with anyone to keep a clean sheet. They weren't bothered about me, you know what I mean? But at Millwall, it was a different relationship.
Talk to me about Gillingham. When I say the word Gillingham, what comes to your mind?
Sedate. There's a lot of words that come to mind. Intellectual pygmy, exploitation. Greatest set of lads apart from Millwall that I ever came into contact with. That includes the promotion winning side at Leyton Orient. You know, Gillingham, they were all men. They all knew where to draw a line. They all trained well. They all tried to play their arts out. They were always very supportive. They're always there for you wanting the ball. They're always there with a little one-liner, but a gentle joke. You know, nothing spiteful or nasty about families and wives. You know what I mean? I've never subscribed to that. I don't know if it makes me strange. I don't know if it makes me a bit of an oddball, or I don't know if it makes me not part of it. But I've never subscribed to it. You know, they call it banter. I mean, it's. And then I smiled to myself. I got a job many years later, decades later, with the Press Association. And then I went to every Arsenal home game for 10 seasons at Highbury, and then the move to the Emirates. And then all the way round the stadium, interspersed with all the trophy winning seasons, there's a saying, victory through harmony. And I used to read it and smile to myself, because I thought to myself, he was born the day after me, but when I can relate. So that you're talking about in terms of like thinking about the game, being a deep thinker, but maybe not as eloquent or coming across as well. You're talking about the flip side of the same coin, like me and Wenger. Like Wenger's born the 22nd of October, I'm born the 21st, and then when you look at some of the stuff that he come out with, and then how he run things, I think, you know what, I can relate to that. And when I was thinking how it should have been at Chelsea, how it should have been all more inclusive, instead of like age groups split into like, you know, you had like the Ray Wilkins age group, and people struggling or striving to be included in that. And they were no great shakes, you know what I mean? And then the venomous banter, even amongst themselves, I used to stand back and go, whoa. You know what I mean? And then away from the field, away from the thing, I was justifiably took it out on the people that deserved it, who thing. But you know, you think to yourself, maybe, even though you're regarded as a bit quaint and a bit oddball and a little bit OTT in training sometimes, maybe like if a couple of people had been straightened out, you know, they'd have been left alone and everything, it would have been more harmonious. When I look at Gillingham, there's a common thread that starts to develop. The best manager I ever played under, who treated me the most fairly and allowed me to be the most expressive and allowed me to be myself and was the most generous in terms of what he wanted to offer me as a contract, was George Petchey. By far and away, easily the best manager and the nicest man and the best football man I've ever played under.